Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Wrestle Plug podcast. I am joined today by a very special guest, somebody I'm quite excited about. Now, a lot of you will recognize him as the man who has arguably the most exciting move in professional wrestling, but there is a lot more to this young man than just a shooting star elbow drop, which in itself blows me up, if I'm being honest, bud. But welcome to the podcast, Joe Lando. How are you doing, fella?
Hello, thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm doing all right. Doing good.
Obviously people are going to be like, hey, that's that guy that does crazy flips. But there's a lot more to you, obviously, and that's what I'm going to delve into with this podcast. But for people who probably don't know who you are, particularly for our listeners who we're very lucky, we have quite an international fan base, people in Israel, New Zealand, Australia, Peru, all these kind of crazy places. Tell them a little bit about yourself. This is your opportunity to kind of cut a promo and tell people who Joe Lando is all about.
Yeah, well, I'm just Joe Lando. I've been wrestling for 4 years now, which is longer than it feels. And yeah, I mean, I like to call myself now the best high flyer in the country because I truly believe I am. Because there's no one doing the things I'm doing in my backyard. So it'll be the same for when shows come back. Yeah, no one is going to be doing what I'm doing, and I truly believe I am the best in this country at high flying.
Yeah, high flying is obviously the evolution of professional wrestling. Anyone who watches AEW, WWE, and everything else and beyond, particularly the Brit Rest indie scene, have noticed that the athleticism has built and built and built so much more. And I agree. I think you're very much at the pinnacle of that. And like you say, just being able to do stuff in your backyard that most people can't do on the biggest and brightest scenes is astonishing. Quick random question, actually. We'll run off on a tangent immediately. Do you own your own ring?
Yes, yeah, it's literally behind that.
He sod.
It is.
I'm so jealous. I'll tell you what, actually, fuck it, we'll get right into it. And by the way, you can swear on here, so feel free to have at it. Owning your own ring. Now, obviously, young man as well. Most people consider owning your own ring as kind of a luxury that you get when you've become a grizzled veteran, and then you can start, renting out and running your own shows and things like that. What went into getting your own ring? How old were you when you first got that ring as well? Was that a big expense for you?
Yeah, we've had the ring since October 2017, I think. So we literally got it right in the winter, and it stayed out there ever since. It's never come in. Wow. It's only been taken down and moved once, and that was literally just slightly across the garden. So like it's been through all that bad weather. But how we got it is because I would have been 17 at the time. So I had just finished my GCSEs, just finished secondary school, and I knew in my head that I wanted to be a wrestler. And my parents are relatively accepting of that. Obviously, we have a ring in the garden, so if that tells you anything. And so they had obviously set up a savings account for me, expecting me to use that for university, a car, whatnot. But they let me use it to get the ring.
Awesome. That's mind blowing to me. Like, I'll train myself, but obviously financially I'd never be able to afford a ring, and I just think that's my dream, is to have one in the garden so I can train more. I imagine that has lent itself to such an incredible progression, because obviously most guys, even yourself included, I'm sure, when you first start, you've got to pay, you got to go to training and your dues, take your bumps and your lumps and things like that. But obviously that helps accelerate the process for you. Or does it? Do you feel that it still created do you feel like it created somewhat of an unfair advantage, for lack of a better term?
Well, to be truthfully honest with you, I trained from when I was 16 up until I was 18. Like, genuinely, the last training session I attended was like June 2018.
Yeah.
So that's almost 3 years like of not going to training. Obviously I've put in hours in that ring, so it's I didn't go cold turkey on training, but yeah, so I learned the basics. I got on shows, and I mean the training school I went to I mean, it wasn't anything special. No disrespect. But I was learning way more wrestling on shows, wrestling against people way better than me, taking that advice, hearing feedback from other people who've seen the match. And I was just learning more from that. And almost at training, it just felt like I had got at the school I was at, I got to the point where, I wasn't really learning that much more. I was learning more by myself in my garden. So I decided to cut training out and just focus on getting bookings and learning that way. So, I mean, you wouldn't hear that advice from anyone, but it's worked so far, I guess.
No, that's actually really refreshing because, like, I'm very lucky. I've interviewed some really big names in the business and guys of all different walks of life, and most of them give you the kind of cookie cutter answer of, yeah, you go to training and you do this and you do that, and it's actually quite refreshing because there aren't many guys who have access. People don't realize, particularly people who aren't like within the business or have been trained or anything, that a wrestling ring is a really unique entity. It's not like just a standard affair. There's a lot of mechanics that go into obviously how the canvas and the boarding and everything works. So it's not a trampoline. Let's just say that. When you first started, you must have already been quite athletic because nobody just literally jumps in the ring and goes, yo, check this out. Like the famous story is one of the Young Bucks, of course. Apparently his very first training session, he walks in, he gets up on the top rope, he does the flip and he goes, yo, I'm Matt Jackson, what's going on? And it's just like, I can imagine that's kind of Joe Lando in a nutshell. I can just imagine like shooting star. It's all right, but you want to stick an elbow on the end of that bad boy. Like, where's the athleticism background come from? Is it something have you always been a lunatic jumping off of things, or are you a gymnast, or where did you get your love for
No, never gymnastics. And that's also something I pride myself on. Like all my flips, it's all self-taught. Wow. All self-taught. Yeah, it started probably when I first got into wrestling, which was at 11 years old, which actually, at least at the school I went out at, everyone was getting out of wrestling kind of when they transitioned into secondary school. But I was the opposite. I hated it through primary school, and then it got brought into the house as I was starting secondary school. So I started watching that. And I remember Sin Cara was one of the guys at the time. And because he was the only one really doing the high flying stuff at that period. And we've had a trampoline for years, but I'd never really been on it. But yeah, it was just seeing the wrestlers like Sin Cara, Rey Mysterio, and deciding to go out there and try it for myself. So I taught myself my first backflip at 11. And then from there, it just progressed each year. And in 2014 or 15, I started a YouTube channel where I would post videos of me like doing like 450 splash or shooting star press or something, and upload it to YouTube. And they actually did well. Some of them were getting like thousands of views in that. And from there, one of the most infamous clips from the channel, I climbed my neighbor's fence and did a 450 splash off of it onto like grass and padding. So yeah, I definitely knew how to do the flips before I came into wrestling.
Is there any temptation to get involved in backyard wrestling? Did you have any? Because like people turn their nose up at it, but Will Ospreay is a really good example of that. Seth Rollins, actually, CM Punk. These are people who all kind of used a form of backyard wrestling to give themselves that excess show experience and training before they broke in.
Yeah, there's something in the works to do with some type of wrestling content coming from my garden. Again, it's difficult being in lockdown now, because actually this time last year we were going into the first lockdown. All the shows have been called off. So at that point I was like, right, well, I'm going to put on a little show in my backyard. And we were like, me and my friends put together like a little card. We made like a stupid poster for it. And we were going to go ahead with it. And then we got put into the official lockdown. So we called that off. But now I'm in the same position where we're starting to come out of lockdown. So, like lots of people have been asking for some type of show or match from the backyard, and nothing's been officially put into place. But like I've spoken to some people, and yeah, we're gonna put on something from my backyard. Hopefully April time.
The question I've asked quite a lot of people actually in previous months has been, how is it trying to stay ring ready in a pandemic? But that must be where you obviously have the opportunity over a lot of people. Like most guys aren't be like, oh, just go in the back garden and, you know, do my usual sort of commando roles and everything else that entails being a wrestler. Like, do you feel like because of the backyard, obviously having the ring there, that means that you've got an opportunity to pretty much stay match ready?
Yeah. Well, yes and no. Obviously, I have a massive advantage over a lot of people due to the ring in my garden. But there's still that dynamic that I don't have anyone to wrestle.
Yeah.
Like it's just me and the mats. So there still will be ring rust on my half because I'm not used to being in there with someone else. Like, I'm not used to obviously getting thrown around again. You know, locking up with someone. There's all that I've been. I've had a few no fan shows, so I've got a taste of it here and there, but it hasn't been you know, routine regulated. So but no, it's fair to say I have an advantage, but it's still, you know, when we're back and when I'm standing across the ring from another person, it's something else. It's a different ball game.
So when you first break into the business, your athleticism, it's unique, it's exciting. Was there any pushback from fellow colleagues, you know, because you're around so many guys who can do so much incredible stuff, but, you know, to your own admission, maybe not necessarily as well as you can?
You know, people have been pretty receptive of it, like backstage. And I've worked, you know, camp shows. I've worked like indie shows where stuff like that's more seen, and like across the board they've been pretty receptive of it. I remember one time I got told off. It was actually on one of the camp shows. I did a backflip in my entrance. So like I just climbed up to the second rope, did my pose or whatever, and then just did a backflip. And then I got told not to do that because it's giving the fans like too much before the match. And it's like I can do way more than a backflip. Like that's not spoiling anything. But apart from that, it's been all right. It's just like some stuff online, like some comments. Like I don't know if you saw the other day, one of the comments, someone kicking off.
Yeah, I wasn't going to mention that, but obviously, if you'd like to speak about it, you're welcome to.
Oh, that's fine. I really don't care because like stuff like that doesn't get me down because
That's good to hear.
Yeah,
that's a good lesson to other wrestlers watching as well, because a lot of my friends are younger than me, where obviously I started later, and young guys I know who are still like 18, 19 training, that'll be a good lesson for them because they haven't really got to that stage yet where they have to deal with abuse and things of that nature.
Because like, you know, 99% of the comments and the feedback I get in person and online specifically is positive. They're nice things, about the stuff I do, and about me as a person as well. So, and I always make sure to retweet those things because so many people will just focus like on the negatives, and like it's human nature to kind of get more. Like if you hear 99 positive things about yourself and one negative, we'll always hone in on that negative thing. Like it's just human nature. But I really tried to make a big deal of not doing that. Like there was a lot of comments on the clip I posted the other day that I just completely ignored because it was dumb. But that one guy in particular, he was just being an ass, and I'd retweeted like all the positive things because it makes me feel good, and I want to remember that, and I want to show the fans some respect by retweeting that, recognizing that. But yeah, there's one guy who's just being an ass, so I quote tweeted it, and I was like, "Look, everybody, this guy's a prick." Like, but yeah, it didn't get me down because I turned it into a joke. At the end of the day, that's all it is. Like, like, why would I be worried about his opinion? Because I mean, I wouldn't go to him for advice, so why should I take advice from him? Like, it's stupid.
It's a very good life lesson, actually. It's lovely to hear from. Like, I'm getting into old man territory now, so I'm refreshed to see so many people of that generation being able to kind of deal with it and compartmentalize it the correct way. And it's a really good lesson, like you've just eloquently pointed out to anyone, because I know a lot of my young friends listen, a lot of young trainees will watch this, because you are very popular with a younger generation of wrestlers, well, and rightfully so. It's very important that you obviously take advice from people that matter, so to speak, and that you understand that, like Joe has just said, actually, perfectly, you wouldn't go to a person like that for advice on your career. So why should you care if that one person has an opinion on said career? So we won't tag Jim Cornette in any video clips, because God forbid he will lose.
Although it is one of my kind of like stupid little goals to get to appear on his feed, for him to see me and for him to say something about me, whether that be positive or negative.
But the irony. The irony of Cornette being that if you get tagged in something with him, actually, chances are you'll probably gain a lot of love in your career. I've noticed this. Anyone that he zones, like, I'd love him to zone in on our podcast, because like the viewers will come flooding in. Like, he's not all bad, to be fair, Jim Cornette, but yeah, there are certain opinions that are very archaic in that respect, and that was kind of what I was looking towards with that question. Now, obviously, what's great is that you're not just very good flippy wrestler who's been to a few places and done a few things. Like, you've actually been to some of the real hot buzzworthy areas of wrestling. I saw you were on Tuesday Night Graps, working with CCK's creation, which is really sick. A great chance to be on that show, working with guys like Aussie Open. You've also tagged with a numerous amount of people. Someone like Maverick Mayhew is particularly fantastic, who's just a cool person in every sense. Everyone loves Maverick. He's just an adorable little fella, and he's like, I say little fella, I'm like 6'3", 6'4", so like everyone's a little fella next to me, but that's fair enough. But the international side of things is actually what I want to talk about, because so many people watching this, particularly as I allude to wrestlers again, won't have had the opportunity to go abroad. What's it like, that first experience going abroad, particularly being such a young man as well?
It's sick. It's sick. Because the first time I went to wrestle abroad, it was in Italy, like 2018. So I'd only been wrestling a year. So like, I mean, no disrespect, but there's some people that have been wrestling a lot longer than that haven't got the chance to obviously step outside the country. So that was like, I felt honored by that. Like a year in, it's just good. Like it's one of the moments where you kind of start to feel like a star. And by no means do I feel like a star, but there's some moments, whether that be, big fan reactions or like a chance to wrestle abroad, and someone fly you out, where you feel good. You feel good. You feel like a wrestler. It's such an amazing experience, especially in Italy, because a lot of the fans out there don't get to experience live wrestling. Rising Sun, which is the biggest promotion in Italy, besides FCW, shout out TG. Rising Sun only run like 5 or 6 shows a year.
Wow.
So they're like, wrestling in Italy is pretty scarce. So when there is a live show there, the fans just eat it up. Like it's like a mini PWG. Like, I don't know if you've seen the clips from Rising Sun, but like, yes, if you do a spot that they love, they'll come to the apron and they'll start banging on the apron. Like, it is amazing. I love it there. And I've wrestled in France as well, which is cool. I wrestled in like a street, just a random street in France, which was an unusual experience, especially to like fly out international talent just to get them to wrestle on the street. That was weird, but it was fun. And then I was meant to wrestle in Germany twice last year, but obviously the pandemic put an end to that. So I haven't been able to step outside the country besides Italy and France for wrestling. But Germany was like a massive one on my list as well. and the pandemic ruined that. So
Was that going to be for WXW or for somebody else?
No. It was for GWP.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm fairly sure I've seen ELP work there. I speak quite a bit of German, so I love Germany. I'm just obsessed with German wrestling and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing for me. That aside, obviously, one thing actually, keeping with that topic, what's the differences like? Is there like when you arrive at first and you're in a different locker room and everyone's speaking different languages and things like that, one thing we don't realize, or a lot of Brits probably don't realize, is that when you go abroad, particularly if you haven't had exposure to abroad, is that like they're incredibly like educated in languages. Like they can just all speak such fluent, incredible languages all over the place. Was it a bit of a culture shock for you, or was it something where you just immediately hit the ground running?
Well, I used to go on holiday to Italy quite a bit as a kid. So like I was used to the scenes of Italy. So that it wasn't like a culture shock in that respect, but I guess not really, because I mean a lot of the Italians, especially the Italian wrestlers, do actually speak English. And obviously
like spot calling or anything like that.
Yeah, and I was out there with other English talent. There was quite a few of us actually the first time I went, and the guys we wrestled the first time was Brixia Bone Breakers, which is Mirko and Nico, and I don't know if they both have, but Mirko's definitely done some training at Knuckle Locks in England. So like, he had already got a taste of British wrestling and how to like plan a match that way. So yeah, it wasn't too much of a shock to plan with. Same in France as well. Amazio is who I wrestled, and he spoke English, so it's been fine. Yeah.
Is there I mean, obviously, you know, very young and you've got plenty of time to achieve so many goals. Obviously you said Germany's very big on the bucket list. Anywhere else in particular where you think I must get out there and work there?
Yes. It's kind of like I've been really bad with setting goals. So I've forced myself to set this goal, and like I'm focused, tunnel vision on this goal. And it is from a year when wrestling gets back, which at the moment my first show is on August the 1st for Wrestle Carnival. Awesome. So yeah, so from August the 1st of this year to August the 1st of next year, within that space, it is my goal to make it over to America. So an American booking, that's kind of the top of my list. Yeah.
Any lofty goals, any aspirations? Like, is there a major company you'd like to work for?
I have like a really weird goal. It's like so specific. It's not one of them ones where like I'll feel, you know, like sad if I don't hit it, but like if I could hit it, it'd be sick. Is actually when WWE did the Cruiserweight Classic, I was a massive fan of that. So if they ever do another one, that's my goal, to get to that, because I think the reason why it resonates so much with me is because the week they started airing it was the same week I had my first training session in wrestling. So it was like June, July time of 2016. So like I was high on wrestling at the time, and it was a sick tournament anyway. Yeah. So, you know, and it's right up my alley. It's my style. So yeah, that's a random goal of mine if they ever do one.
Any dreams of wrestling Sin Cara? He's still pretty big business in Mexico.
Yeah, why not?
Is it weird saying to people, like, because obviously I would assume Sin Cara, you know, he's one of the first people you would have got exposure to in terms of cruiserweight wrestling. Is it weird sort of saying to people like, yeah, Sin Cara's like one of the big inspirations for me, because obviously his name is so synonymous, unfortunately, actually, with, you know, mistakes, but he's actually genuinely royalty in Mexico. Like, if you go, he is a god. Like, it
was sick. Because like the only two real high flyers when I first started watching was Sin Cara and Kofi Kingston. Like, Kofi Kingston was my favorite because my brother's favorite was Sin Cara, so I couldn't pick him because he had already been taken. So I was like, oh, Kofi, he's my guy. Because I think I just missed Evan Bourne, which I mean that would have been sick if I was still watching him.
Perfect for you.
But I think he was on like his, I don't know, second, third suspension for whatever. So yeah, so because Sin Cara and Kofi, they were the only guys doing like flips and stuff. And like 2011 was a dark period for WWE. Although it was the start of CM Punk's big title reign, and he quickly became one of my favorites.
The athleticism side obviously is nailed on. You're going to be fine for that. Character wise, it's something that I don't get an opportunity to ask high flyers enough. What would you like to do in terms of the evolution of your character, your gimmick, the way you present yourself, your personality, your promotion?
That's the thing. I've always been so set on just trying to be, you know, a good wrestler, a good high flyer. Yeah. But I've never had any ideas for a character really, which is like recently I have been calling myself, and it's, you know, because I believe it, that I am the best high flyer in this country. Yeah. So, you know, if you want to label that as a gimmick, then there it is.
Fair enough. Just simply put, the best at what you do. Yeah. That's Chris Jericho, isn't it? He likes that too. That's fair enough. That's absolutely fair enough. So, obviously, the sheer athleticism aside, like I say, I mentioned at the top of this podcast, you do the shooting star elbow drop. I'd be remiss if I didn't at least mention it, because it is kind of like an identity, you know. Everyone's got a move. I don't think it's bad that people have a signature move or a finisher. Like, for instance, Austin is a god, and yet, you know, you say Stone Cold Stunner, aha. Like, you know, I think that's important to a wrestler, that their moveset and particularly their signatures or their identity and really playing to who they are as an individual or a character or a wrestler. When's the first time when you realize, yeah, shooting star press, that's okay, but I want to stick an elbow on the end? And also, how do you nail a move? So, because it is a thing of beauty, like it genuinely is. Like, it's like I was like, whoa! I remember seeing it on a clip about, I think about a year ago. I was like, that's filthy. And I also remember on the crib sheet when you wrestled for Tuesday Night Graps. I think, one of the members of CCK ran down, like I said, this kid can do a shooting star. So he's booked. That's I'm quite a human. That's my sort of thing. So yeah, tell us about it. Tell us about the move, because that's what people do want to hear about it.
So, I mean, I never actually planned on using it, which I'm so glad I was pressured into doing it, because it's stuck, and it's you know, it's got me noticed. As you say, it got me that Tuesday Night Graps booking. Because at first I was just going to use a shooting star press. But like, because I could hit it really clean, it was nice. And then one time I was just messing around in the backyard, like onto a bunch of crash mats and a teddy, and like I just did it. I just did it because I could. it was one of them, because I got so much hang time on my shooters. Like I had enough time to twist into the elbow drop, and it looked cool. So I did that onto a bunch of crash mats and a teddy. I put it on Instagram back when I just used to shit post, like I'll post anything. And then another wrestler on a show I worked, saw it. And at the next show we were at together, he came over to me. It was Blake is the wrestler. And like Blake he's a big guy. And he comes over to me and he's like, I want you to hit the shooting star elbow. I was like, I've only done it once. Like, I don't know how to hit it safely. And he's like, no, you're going to do it. Like, I want you to hit that. And the guy I was working, LT Mercer, the first one to take it, he was all up for it. Like, so he was egging me on to do it too. I was like, oh, fine, I'll do it. I absolutely crushed him on it. I killed him.
Oh.
It was like, because normally I kind of like to land with this part, like an elbow drop, but this was like all like ribs inside, like no give in that. That was the first time I did it, and it just caught on. Like, people liked it. So I guess it was just from there. I was like, well, I need to learn how to do it safely first. Which the next time I did it was fine. So I've now learned how to aim it, and I'm really confident with it. And yeah, people started catching on. It was getting some hype. So and it stands out, like it makes me unique. Like because there's quite a few people on the independent scene that can hit a shooting star press, but there's probably some people that can hit the elbow, but there is no one that does it.
I've not seen it. I've
Exactly.
watched literally thousands of hours. I'm a wrestling nerd. I've never seen it before, and that was really what drew me and a lot of the people involved in this podcast towards you, is the fact that it's like, well, that's so cool because it's unique. It's an identity. I like the fact that many years down the line, when you're a huge megastar and working for AEW and kicking Omega's ass and things like that, people are going to be like using that as a bit of trivia. Did you know that LT Mercer took it first? Like, that's going to be the thing.
I had to get it out there.
He's gonna love that. He loves that. That's a cheap pot for that boy. Yeah. The one thing I always wanted to ask as well, because we just don't get enough good high flyers on. Well, you're the best at it, so nobody's really going to match up. That's the way it is, I'm afraid. But is there because obviously the argument from, shall we say, more miserable people is that, if you just keep doing that, it gets boring and then the fans need more. Do you feel that you have an opportunity to evolve? It's kind of like I'd like to spin a positive on it, because I believe that positivity is important. Do you see yourself pushing yourself to do anything even more crazy? Is there something working around in the mind that makes you think, yeah, that's good, but how much further can we take this? Can I do like a 450 elbow drop and then just advance from there?
My mind, the clogs are always turning. I'm thinking of new stuff, because there's so, especially now it's 2021. There's so much that's been done. Like, it's really, really difficult to invent new ideas. So a lot of the stuff I try, like some of the springboards and rope steps or whatnot, is just like putting my own twist on it. So like the other day when I did the shooting star elbow plus, which was the over rotated shooting star press into the elbow drop, like I was just really, I think that was Monday I did that, and I just got really bored that day, and a random thought of like envisioning that popped into my head, and I just couldn't sit still. I was like, I have to go out there and try it, because I think I can do it. And like after 5 minutes I got it. So that one literally just came into my head on that Monday, and then I put it into action like straight away. So I can never answer that question, because I really don't know. I could, as soon as this call ends, I could think of another idea and go out there and film it. Like that's just how I work. So I don't know. I'm always aspiring to put my own twist on things, and to think of innovative ideas, and I'm hoping I'll get a chance, obviously when wrestling's back, to explore more ideas with now another person being there.
Yeah.
Because as I said earlier, everything I've done has just been me on my own. But when you add the dynamic of another person there, there's, twice as many possibilities. It's, yeah.
Is there an Achilles heel? Is there a move that you look at and think, that's evaded me? Or is there, or even so, as a kind of double barrel question, is there stuff where you look at it and you think, I'm just not going to do that? Like, technical stuff's boring. Like, because I've seen you do it. Like, you can obviously do it, but is there anything in particular where you just think, I just really don't want to do that?
I guess. Even in high flying, there's moves like that. Like double moonsault, no thanks. 630. I've done it before, and it's so associated with Ricochet, or like on AEW, I think Sammy Guevara does it.
Yes.
So it's just like I don't need to do that again. I don't want to do that. So there's stuff like that. But even with the technical wrestling, like I'll be the first to admit it. Like that's not my strong point. Like, so I always shy away from things like that, just because like I don't shine when doing that. But I would love to get better at it, and that's one of the things. If I did have someone here to wrestle, the amount of like technical chain wrestling, I'd be doing, would help me improve massively. So I mean, there's some things I shy away from because I'm not the best at it. Like I don't know, powerhouse moves. I simply can't do them. So of course I'm going to shy away from them. And even for someone my size, like what's the point of me doing a power bomb? Because there's someone else in the back, way more, jacked and bigger than me, that's going to be able to do it 10 times better.
Yeah.
Whereas the set,
Focus
if
on what
that
you're
same
brilliant
guy, if and it works both ways. Because I hate when people say that small guys can't do big moves. Yet when Keith Lee does a moonsault, they pop big for that. Whereas like I can do a moonsault 10 times better than Keith Lee. Like he shouldn't do that move. But I mean that's not how I think. Like when he does that move, I think it's sick. And I'm also all for smaller guys doing big man moves because I think that's sick. Because wrestling's cool. I like random shit being done. Like, go nuts, go crazy. But sorry, I went off on one there.
No, that's fine. That's what we do.
Yes, so there'll be things I shy away from because people can do it better than me. And I want to be the best at what I do.
I'm looking forward to the eventual Twitter beef that comes from somebody tagging Keith Lee in this conversation. He'll love you. He'll absolutely love you. Would you like to wrestle bigger guys like that? Because there isn't that many guys who really personify power left in British wrestling. Is there like a kind of a thrill with that? Do you ever get bored of wrestling guys of a similar size in terms of athleticism, or is it a case of you just want to just keep going anyway, or is there kind of like a refreshing palate cleanser by wrestling a heavyweight wrestler in some ways?
I mean, in terms of the match, like the amount of matches I've had, I think I've had like 120, give or take. So and some people hit like 120 in one camp show run in like a space of a few months. So like realistically it's not that much. So I'm still at the point where like I don't really care. As long as I'm wrestling, I'm happy. I definitely gel better, and I'll definitely look back on matches with like people more of my style or size. So I'll definitely enjoy them more. That's not to say I don't enjoy matches against big guys, but it's just I just gel better with people like that.
What do you think of NXT UK and what it brings to the table? Because it's an opportunity to ask you, and I ask a lot of guys, and most people are fairly positive about it, but people have their critiques, and I don't think that's unhealthy either. I think it's important that people embrace both sides of a coin. But does NXT UK interest you at all? Because a lot of guys that I've spoken to from your generation are very much of the sort of mindset of, yeah, that's kind of like the pinnacle for us because it's the opportunity to be on the WWE platform without having to go abroad.
Well, it's definitely not the pinnacle for me. I would much rather go abroad. Whether that be the NXT in Orlando. But I mean, I think is great because it's putting more eyes on British wrestling and British wrestling talent. I mean, there's the argument that it's being brought in to almost kill British wrestling, which I disagree with. I don't think it's doing that because it's putting, as I said, more eyes on British wrestling talent, and it's also cleansing the independent scene for guys like myself to get more of a chance on shows.
Yeah,
because a lot of the talent that used to be on these big shows have now been signed.
Yeah.
So it cleanses British wrestling and the independent scene. That's my take on it. Yeah.
Yeah, that was actually, I love the fact you mentioned that because it jogged my memory. When it first came into fruition, obviously we covered this topic on the podcast because we've been going for 9 or 4 years now. And I said that actually, from a positive aspect, this was an opportunity for guys that I was around, guys that I was training with, and guys that I admire, like yourselves. This was your opportunity to now push through, because all of a sudden gaps were appearing for you to become bigger main event stars, as opposed to, hey, let's stick just Joe Lando in there. He can fill a gap. Actually, now it's a case of Joe Lando has the opportunity to become a much bigger star on our scene. And we forget as well that we have one of the richest wrestling scenes in the world, never mind Europe. We forget that. There are so many, like you say, with Italy. Like, I'm always amazed. Like, I've had Kira Kamara on the podcast, who's French. And she was talking about how, like, you just can't get any work there. Dave Francisco came on, said the same thing about the Portuguese scene. And these are big, good countries with a great, rich history of catch wrestling or amateur wrestling or even professional wrestling. And yet the indie scene just hasn't blossomed like it has over here. As we move towards sort of wrapping up, although you're always welcome back on whenever you like, obviously. What's the kind of immediate hope for you and what Brit Wrestler affords you going forward? I know you said that within a year you'd like to get out to America and do bookings, but looking at, the home aisles and things of that nature, do you have any immediate goals? Anything you'd really like to achieve?
I mean, like, it's generic, just saying like, oh, like anything and everything, like, blah, blah. But I mean, it really is that way. Like, especially now, being deprived from shows for so long, I will literally like wrestle anywhere and anyone, so it's almost hard to gauge goals like that, because you don't know what talent certain shows are going to use going forward now. You don't know your shot or whatnot. Obviously Progress have been just featured on the WWE Network recently, and that, I mean, again, like NXT UK, that's a fantastic opportunity for young talent, to showcase what they can do. Like, one of my best friends, Danny Black, has been featured on those shows.
Great.
And it's so surreal to see him there, because he really deserves it. And we need more of that. Good young talent getting recognition on like mainstream shows. So I mean, if I could get featured on one of those, massive goal. I mean, I'd like to work Revolution Pro, because again, top British independent promotion. But it really is a case of anywhere and everywhere.
Awesome. There was a spot that I recognised for one of your matches. You took a RKO out of a shooting star press, or a cutter, as we like to call it on Independence, because we're all snobs. Yeah. I just really liked it because it's the only other time I've seen it done. And obviously you mentioned Evan Bourne earlier, and it's quite ironic, really. He's an amazing career, Matt Sydal, but he's regarded as that guy who got RKO'd in midair, which is unfortunate. Was that your idea? I was curious as to whether that was your idea. If you'd seen the spot and thought, let's do that, that'll be some good shit.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was just because obviously as a fan, as a mark of wrestling myself, seeing certain spots and knowing like I can do that, like I can pull that off. I think it was just one of those where we needed a big finish for the match, and we knew what the crowd were like, as I say, kind of PWG-esque, if you will. So we knew that would get a good reaction, a cheap pop, if you will, even though a lot of precision went into it. And it got the reaction we intended. I've taken that spot a few times, actually.
Oh, really?
And I did it into an X Factor, like a sit out face buster, which I'd never seen before. I did that with Cuban Heat, and that the timing on that was, it was immaculate.
I'll leave this as your final question, because I quite like this question. You are the best high flyer in Britain. We'll champion that if you like. All around the world, who is the biggest contender to your throne, and who's the person that you want to show that you are better at when it comes to high flying?
There's so many people. There's so many just sick high flyers. As I say, like I can say confidently, I'm the best in this country. In the States, Andrew Everett.
Oh, he's
And
amazing.
in my opinion, the world. So Andrew Everett is just above us all
Is he a
because he can.
pinnacle then in terms of wrestling? Would you like love to
Um,
get in there and kind of prove to him what you can do?
like a battle of the best high
Mm.
flyers. He's definitely on the list. I think someone huge on my list is Amazing Red
Oh, he's
because
incredible. Yeah.
because he's kind of like the founder
Yeah.
of a lot of
The
the
Godfather of
move.
high flying. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like I mean, he compared to some people today, he may not be like the craziest, or he may not have done the most rotations. But he was so innovative. And I'm a massive fan of his, especially due to his size as well. Because
Yeah.
I'm a small guy, I'm only 5'6", and I think he was similar, if not shorter. Um, so seeing people like that wrestle was really inspiring to me. So he's definitely high up on my list, probably at the top. And then also Royce Chambers in Australia.
Mm.
He's definitely the best high flyer over there. He's someone who I'd like to step in the ring with.
Do you like the idea of maybe I'd love to I've considered myself an entrepreneur. I would love the opportunity to run my own show, and something that's really got my brain kicking in listening to this is actually the ultimate high flying contest, bringing together the best internationals. I'd love to see you and Royce, and I'd like to get like Jarrell Clark, for instance, who some people credit as the inventor of the 630 and things like that.
Yeah,
I'd
he
love to
was
bring
Mr.
everyone
630.
in, knockout tournament like Super Strong Style, but just for the high flyers. Our version of the Cruiserweight Classic, I think, is absolutely so. Basically, anyone who's watching who's got the money and the power and the ability to do it, just fucking book it, get on with it. Simple as.
That's the dream. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Before we go, actually, obviously, people will want to find you. Most people will see the videos, they'll think they're incredible. But for people who maybe haven't seen them yet or want to interact with you and want to follow your career, where can they find you on social media?
So on all the social medias, I am at Just Joe Lando. That includes the just. On everything, I've got, I know, Twitter, Instagram. I have a TikTok now as well.
Nice.
Which I just recycle the old clips from my, Instagram and Twitter. So if you want to follow me on any of those platforms, at Just Joe Lando, do it.
Awesome. And a tip to young wrestlers out there, keep it the same for everything. It's so much
Yes,
easier.
yeah.
So when they're like, oh, it's this on TikTok and it's this on Instagram, it's this, I'm like, why? It just,
Yeah,
whatever.
and underscores confuse me as well. Like, just keep it
Yeah.
one thing.
Yeah, especially when you got more than one. I'm like, you don't need that many underscores. That's now I sound like an old man. Too many underscores, get off my lawn. Yeah, Joe, thank you very much for joining me, man. It's an absolute pleasure. Like I say, lovely to have you back as well. If you'd like to come back, I'd really love to have you back on once Brit Rest obviously resumes, because you're going to be out there, you're going to be kicking ass, and obviously we always take pride in anyone who comes on, and before and after, and always forever after, should I say. We like to promote your stuff and make sure that people know where you are. So don't hesitate to let us know wherever you're going to be, so we can plug that on our. We've got quite a sizable Facebook following for some unknown reason. I have no idea why. We have like 40,000 followers. I'm like,
Oh, wow, that's
hey,
sick.
yeah, I know. I was like, wow, I wish we were that popular. But Joe, thank you very much for joining me, man. I'm really excited to see what your career is going to blossom into in the near future, frankly.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely.